Okay, folks, it's like the end of the day. I guess one thing I could do is just record this vlog because we're in triple digits now, day 100, for, I guess what I call easy mode, and it's over 3 weeks for the quote unquote hard mode. But I guess the main thing I kind of wanted to talk about or get off my chest or so was just I've had some really vivid dreams, and it's mostly been about like really like strongly emotional memories I've had over the past, like, let's say 4 to 5 years. Um, I almost feel it's kind of like part of the quote unquote healing process. You kind of go into on NoFap. Because essentially, like, I've gotten to the point where it's sort of like, um, I've done this before to a certain extent, but it's kind of like the memories and such that I was dealing with her from, even before. Because, like, talk about back in 2017 when I had my longest streak, it was like, you get to the point where you're sort of like, um, dealing with like deeper memories or traumas or feelings or emotions or whatever, and it's sort of like you get to the point where you kind of realize you just kind of gotta face the ups and downs of life as it is, and you can't really go and hide from it. So you get those really intense emotional reactions to different stuff, or really strong emotional memories, and it's like, as much as they may sometimes kind of like suck, because it's sort of like, memories of um, having your heart broken, or like, your pet dog, dying, or just like how life used to be, sort of nostalgia, if you will. Um, it's all kind of part of being human, and I know that since I'm experiencing this sort of stuff, it's like it's really part of the healing process, and I'm actually making progress, and that I'm experiencing this sort of stuff, having really really vivid dreams. Um, like one of them in particular was about, I was walking along, I was talking to this one girl who I'd gone to classes with, and towards the end of the dream we were just kind of talking about stuff like shooting the shit, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it. I think towards the end of the dream, it was like sort of philosophical conversation. I can't remember the exact details of all of it, but towards the end of the dream, I said something along the lines of, "Yeah, I wish life had a soundtrack. So, like if you had like a song that's associated with you, like if somebody heard that song, they'd remember you." I kind of woke up, and I remember like thinking like, my main sort of concern was like the whole idea of being forgotten. Like being forgotten by the folks I'd gone to school with, or being forgotten by my friends, or um, sort of people drifting apart and like not really remembering you, especially like folks who had a really strong impact on me, positive or negative. Wanting those folks to remember me, so to speak, because it was sort of like this idea that I guess you could say, like, you're born, you grow up, you grow old, and then you pass on, and it's sort of like, the thing that you leave behind really is like the memory of you. Because like I've been following up on like Alexander the Great a lot, because I have like sort of to put it lightly, I have a um, bloodline connection to him, his soldiers, the armies that he led east from Greece, and um, sort of like one branch of the family. Others do go back to Greece, but I think it's more through like recent, like like the merchants who came over, established themselves in India, during the spice trade. That sort of, so there's that angle, but um, he's a big historical figure with my family, on my dad's side, and also just the world in general. And it's like, you know, there's like a quote that he has in the movie Alexander 2004. It's like, something along the lines of you know at the end of it all we will have is what we have done. Sort of like the memory of our deeds. And the fact that folks still remember him. He died in like what, 323 BC. Yeah, it's 2020, and there's still folks writing books about him, talking about him, studying his battles, and um, studying his life. From the day he was born to the day he died. Studying his tutelage under Aristotle, marveling at him. It's sort of the closest thing to a philosopher king, if you will. from the ancient world, or one of the closest ones to that. The fact that Julius Caesar, was like, enamored with his memory, and was like, broke down in tears at one point, saying that, Alexander at my age had conquered the world, and what have I done, so to speak? This is Julius Caesar of all people, the guy who transitioned the Roman Republic to an empire. Yeah, that guy felt like he was nothing compared to Alexander. You think about like what could you do in your own life to sort of be somewhere on that level? Because once you're gone, all that is left is like the memory of what you did. If you had that much of an impact, probably a more recent example would be like someone like Steve Jobs. Love him or hate him or be indifferent to him, but the fact is, he had a significant impact on the world, and people still like remember him and study his life and that sort of deal. And I guess sort of like the greatest fear is to be forgotten. Not so much to like pass on, because that's there is a fear of that, but to a certain extent you kind of accept it, or you sort of say to yourself, oh, it's off in the future. I'm not going to deal with that right now. But at the same time, you're sort of wanting some sort of immortality where you're like remembered after you've left this world. Wherever one does go to, whether one goes into nothingness or some other realm or whatever the case may be. But and I guess that's sort of a lot of my reason for getting into not just like spirituality or religion in general, but like mysticism and magic and Thelema. It's like that whole search for finding and fulfilling your true will, and sort of reaching beyond the veil of mundane reality and that sort of deal, and like manifesting or doing your true will, and I guess in some sense making your mark upon the world, and then sort of giving a reason for people to remember you, as opposed to you just being some guy who did his 9 to 5 job, or went about his life and was just kind of like forgettable. I guess through these dreams I've been sort of processing stuff that's happened, and I guess the bad thing is that a lot of times you wake up from these sorts of dreams and you almost wish you could go back to the dream world, because maybe the mundane world is kind of boring, or you had sort of access to things, or even you could access other people that you can't when you're like laying there awake in your bed. You can't talk to them, you can't communicate things to them that you wish you had. Because a lot of my anger and frustration these days comes from the like kind of like sitting there and sort of the quiet days or quiet hours or so, I'm thinking like, ugh, if only I'd said that thing, or if only I'd done this or whatever. Because there's so much stuff that I like held back and didn't say, whether it was telling somebody to like go pound rocks or kick rocks or pound sand, so to speak, or it was like expressing my sort of feelings on something, or sort of correcting somebody's misconceptions of me. But it's kind of like I kept my mouth shut, because at least at the time I felt like if I opened my mouth and say anything, the clique or the system or the environment, the people there are sort of like gang up on me. It's sort of like a coalition, of beta going after the alpha, or coalition of betas going after the sigma, or basically like the rank and file people going after the one guy who's sort of like refusing to salute the great leader, or the all powerful leader or whatever, because he sees that the emperor has no clothes, that sort of thing. Like it was like the emperor had no clothes, and I could see the emperor had no clothes. And even if I was saying I was gonna try to alert the emperor to this, because I didn't want him or the empress, in the case it was a female, to like look like a fool, or to be exposed, or to be vulnerable, or that it was sort of like bad press for that person, just like raising your hand and saying, hey, you got no clothes on, here's some clothes, you should cover yourself. Would have sort of gotten all of the rank and file, or the unwashed masses converging on me, and like beating me to a bloody pulp, so to speak. Not necessarily literally, but like, more like verbally and socially, and I was like concerned about that because I thought, nobody's gonna take my side, nobody's gonna believe me, nobody's gonna like defend me, sort of thing. So I kept my mouth shut. But here we are, like what, 1, 2, maybe even 3 years, depending on the situation we're talking about later. Me sitting here and going, like, I should have said something. I should have stood up and just let it off my chest, so to speak. And even if they, laughed at me or so, like, I would have at least been sitting here going, I said something. I stood up for myself, so to speak. But at the same time, like, a lot of the situations, it was like they weren't trying to prove a point. There wasn't sort of some, it wasn't like a platonic or Socratic dialogue where, the folks there were literally engaged in like wanting to find the truth, or it wasn't like sitting there and me as one of Aristotle's pupils and trying to actually like learn something, um, or being anyone of the great geniuses of the religious type, or one of their pupils and their students trying to really find out the truth of the capital T, or cut through reality with the capital R and get to the heart of the matter. It wasn't really about that. It was just like people getting their kicks, so to speak. Because in some cases it was they couldn't do what I could do. They couldn't be me, so they had to try and like beat me down. In some cases, it was obviously like some of these folks are like from overseas, and they kind of felt like they didn't belong in this environment, and there I was, an American kid, and all the things that I could do, so to speak, and the fact that I actually belonged here. And I have some coffee here, but I might just drink some water. Anyways, it was stuff like that that kind of still can bug me, because like nowadays, like I don't care so much. Back then I cared way more. I cared way more what folks would think, whether or not they would accept me, or whether or not they would work with me. It's like one thing I've found sort of in retrospect is that like people were kind of set in their ways already. They had their sort of opinions of things, and it was almost like it wasn't really me. It was like they weren't. Even if I did say anything, which I didn't, they were still gonna sort of like, be the way they were, be hostile, or be difficult to work with, or so on. It's almost like, unless you're risking employment or you're risking some sort of legal ramifications, it's almost like, you should speak up, you should defend yourself, you should at least get the truth out there. And whether people accept it or not, shouldn't so much matter, because, unless of course them not accepting it means them coming after you. Because, you'll oftentimes just end up sort of sitting there stewing in the thought of, oh, I should have said something, I should have opened my mouth, I should have stood up and, set things right, because, who knows what could have happened, sort of thing. And, other than that, I think the other main thing that's kind of stuck with me, or I've sort of had this sort of epiphany of sorts, and I think it's something that I sort of discovered a while ago, or heard about a while ago, but like I hadn't really processed it. And I was talking to my dad about this actually, but it was like whether or not it's sort of a company, or it's a girl, or whoever, whatever kind of relationship or psychological frame you're in. It's like the truth is like loyalty doesn't get rewarded as much as maybe it once did. And of course, saying that it maybe once was rewarded is kind of like a nostalgic reframing of the past, because, like Frank Hurwitz put it, some of the things with conservatives is they want to sort of fall back to this past that never really existed, this idealized past that they think existed. If you could only go back to that, things would be great, sort of thing. But I know that, if you were to read the histories of Alexander, like a lot of the stuff that's happening nowadays happened back then. You know, people were still backstabbers and schemers and climbers, and they couldn't actually get the grand vision of the great leader who Alexander was. And he also was, I mean, admittedly, he was, when it came to putting down resistance or fighting, yeah, he was brutal. He did what he felt he had to do to win. But I was talking to my dad about this, and it's sort of like, like I said, loyalty doesn't get rewarded so much. And whether you're working for a company or you're with some girl or so, you gotta be willing to, I guess, have other options and explore those options, and be willing to get up and walk away from the situation you're in, willing and able to. Should it come to that, because like my dad's dealt with it with jobs where he was like at a place for like 9 or even almost 10 years, and when it stopped serving them to keep him on as like a engineering manager or lead engineer or whatever he was at that point, like it wasn't like, it was almost like a snap of the fingers, and he wasn't working there anymore, and they gave him some severance package or whatever, stuff even that happened like years ago. And with me, it was the whole like thing with the ex-girlfriend, because I did my damnedest to stick to the whole like I'm being loyal and I'm not talking to any other girls, to have friends who are girls, and just completely isolating myself. And meanwhile, as much as she would keep telling me, oh, I don't talk to other guys, I don't have other guys in rotation, so to speak. It didn't take her more than like less than a month to start finding other guys and having a guy lined up, basically. Actually, she already kind of had him lined up when we were towards the tail end of the relationship. And within a few months after that, she was married to him. She got married to him, so, that happened. And, in the meantime, like, I completely eliminated any possibility of options I had in college. And, right now, it's like I don't have any options. And then another girl who had anything close to what I had with a girlfriend, like, she moved on, she got with that other guy, she was the one-eyed girl, and that just became a game of her playing with my emotions and such to sort of, get a vindication against me for, like, me, not getting with her, or her perception that I was playing with her. At one point, that sort of deal, rejecting her and whatnot. And ultimately, any loyalty or virtue I showed was not rewarded, And I think this is one of the reasons why, fundamentally, among other reasons, why if I hear, girls complaining about guys, or complaining about the guys they're with, or just complaining about life in general, like I don't take them really take them seriously, and I almost like roll my eyes at them, because I've seen repeatedly, whether it was with my dad or with others, that they don't reward virtue in men. They don't reward it. They don't reward the good in men. At least not these days. I mean, I can't really speak to my forebears generations per se, but it doesn't get rewarded, and then they want to complain why they end up in a really bad situation. Like I've seen it with my sister, her repeatedly dating the quote-unquote bad boys, or occasionally having one or two boyfriends who was a good guy, but then treating that guy like dirt, and then that guy kind of being pushed to his limits, and finally, like, sort of, just dumping her, walking away from her. I think one guy ended up cheating on her, but it was like this whole situation where, like, he, I guess, went looking for his emotional needs to be met, and then that led to cheating, because she was just treating him like dirt, basically, like, kind of like mimicking my mother's behavior towards my father. And of course, they lack self-awareness for the most part, unless it's like forced upon them, and then they kind of learn. But by then it's usually like too late. They're in their 30s, and nobody really wants them at that point. At least not the high-value guys, because they basically wasted their best years when they could have been getting the high-value guy, who they didn't have to work on, who they didn't have to sort of build up. They didn't have to do the work themselves. They could have gotten a guy who'd already done the work, or was in the process of doing the work himself and didn't need somebody to sort of be mommy 2.0. So yeah, it's kind of like why I don't really have the kind of sympathy I once had. But also realizing just fundamentally you gotta look out for yourself. And you gotta do what's best for yourself. So whether that's in employment or that's in romantic relationships or whatever the case may be. Not to go and like screw people over, but be willing to sort of move on a good opportunity should it present itself. But anyways, that's my sort of state of mind right now. I'm actually making some progress here. In the triple digits, day 100, and I've kind of been saving up a lot of stuff to record this video. So thanks for watching. Hope this helps someone out there. If it does, thanks, and I'll see you folks around. Bye bye.